Welcome everyone to the ThinkPoints Strategy webinar. This webinar is on behalf of the Kraft Foods Alumni Network and the CPG Professional Networks organizations collaborating. Just a thing or two about the Kraft Foods Alumni Network and CPG Professional Network. We have 4 key areas that the organization is focused on, leveraging the expertise of our members, such as our presenter today. Networking, building a network or community for professionals to collaborate, network with each other, and share ideas around a variety of topics. Build a community for identifying and assisting talent, our members, for job transitions and talent opportunities for other companies or companies that are looking for talent. Building a productive consulting community around ideas of business development, where we can assist consultants with that, as well as assist companies that are looking for consultants in the CPG space. And then the last one is development, which this particular webinar today falls under, which is about professional development and offering a variety of solutions in that vein. You will find that there will be several more webinars coming up between now and the end of the year. There are summer networking events planned in Chicago. We're collaborating with the Chicagoland Food and Beverage Network for an event that's going to be at the Bank America building in downtown Chicago. And then there's another summer event in Miami, Coral Gables, on the Latin America chapter, Miami chapter of the organization. And then we'll follow up this fall with panel discussions and presentations in more cities. So we're back in Chicago, back in Miami, and then Metro New York is now working on a panel discussion for that group. So we are, again, a member organization working on those 4 key areas that I talked about at the very beginning. I'm Perry Scholes. I'm the founding member of the Kraft Foods Alumni Network and the president of both the Kraft Foods Alumni Network and the CPG Network. Today, we have Lessons in Strategy with Larry McMannis. Larry is the CEO and Chief Strategist for ThinkWay Strategies LLC. His organization provides advisory services and coaching and strategy development, and strategy execution. He's done work for a number of clients in a wide variety of industries, including consumer products, energy, manufacturing, financial services, furniture, transportation, logistics, engineering, chemicals, and other industries, as well as churches and nonprofit organizations. His proprietary strategy methodologies, the ThinkPoints Strategy Canvas and the ThinkPoints Strategy web app models, can be applied to businesses of all sizes and situations in a wide variety of industries. And that's the topic of discussion today, to talk about both the strategy and the methodology and the application. Larry was a senior leader for Kraft Foods, where he led strategy and strategic initiatives at the division, North American, and global Kraft levels. He's a recipient of multiple awards, an award of 2 patents, 31 terrific years at Kraft Foods, and he is retired and the CEO of ThinkPoints. So we want to welcome Larry, appreciate him for being here today and sharing his expertise. So Larry, I'm going to turn things over to you, and hopefully we'll enjoy the session. Thank you for being here.
Yep, thank you for having me, Perry. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Just a quick check. Does that sound okay, Perry?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay, thanks. Impressive organization you're leading. I appreciate the opportunity to share the over lunchtime here. So if I could provide virtual lunch, I would, but I haven't figured that one out yet. So we're going to actually move through. There's going to be 2 components to this. One will be this brief presentation on the methodology here. Let me see if I can make sure that my slides advance the way they should. So I do want to cover the methodology. We'll see a little demo of the web application, which is just launched this month with my clients. And then, plenty of time for your feedback, questions, comments, things that you see that you'd really like to chat about. So that sound okay? Here we go. What do all these people have in common? We have a shopper, a crying child, someone in a boardroom, and a professional football player. And if we were in a different atmosphere, I'd let you shout out your answers. But since you don't have that opportunity, I'm going to tell you the answer to that. The answer is all of them have strategy in common. The reality is that contrary to conventional wisdom, everybody does strategy. If you've ever had kids or been around them, you know that they employ strategy to get what they want. Shoppers have strategies. Everything as simple as a child trying to get something they want to very sophisticated strategies. If your mission is to play in the NFL and your vision is to win the Super Bowl, then strategy is what takes you from where you are today to where you want to be. So that's kind of how I think about strategy. The approach is intuitive, and it's been kind of proven out over a lot of years of experience across a lot of different kinds of industries and business sizes and application to different types of strategy. Some of them shown here, whether you're asking for a growth strategy, a marketing strategy, you have a continuous improvement thing you're doing, you got a labor strategy for your enterprise, cash flow, you name it. The methodology works for those types of things because it leverages a natural process that people go through every day. Including the intuitive approach of, I got to stop for some food on my way home to grab something for the grocery store for dinner tonight. So my intent is grab something for dinner. The situation is it's after work. It's usually busy. I'm in a rush. I don't know what I've going to get, but I know I've had 3 pizzas. Or pizzas 3 nights in a row, so that's not going to be it. I have some issues. I've been sitting at my desk all day, and so I want to maximize the steps. My insight is that it takes too long to drive around that parking lot to find the best spot. So I'm going to find the first open spot and book it into the store because my objective is in and out in 10 minutes. My strategy is, go down this first row, and if I don't get anything, or if I can't see it on my first scan, I'm going to take the first available parking space. Tactics are things like, turn right, make sure I don't run over the woman in the blue coat, that sort of thing. A very intuitive, natural process that people, consciously and subconsciously go through all the time. It's just part of the way we think, and as you get an opportunity to kind of think about this process, you'll understand that it is something that you already leverage. So the question then becomes, how do we take that methodology and make it adaptable? This is emblematic of my typical golf game with a golf ball hidden behind the trees and the flag barely visible up at the top of the hill. Based on my capabilities, there's only so many strategies that I could really employ in this situation. I actually played in the Pro-Am tournament last week that American Family puts on here, and played with a PGA tour tour professional, and I can tell you that person has a lot more capabilities than I have. So his situation analysis, his strategies, his issues are different than mine, but the methodology is adaptable in that situation anyway. So it's adaptable to capabilities, situations, whatever challenges somebody's facing. And the other thing is that the methodology is easily deployable. We call it a parent-child strategy linkage, and I'll show you more in the demo of this. But it's an example from football, for example. The head coach's strategy might be broad and not just be thinking about a particular season or a particular game, but a particular season, where the offensive coordinators, thinking about offensive plans for this particular game and plays that he might pull out of his hat, and the quarterback then is even more specific. But all those need to be linked together. And the methodology that you're going to see today is deployable in the sense that it links up to higher levels or links down to lower levels as needed. So those three things, it's intuitive, it's adaptable, and it's deployable, make it pretty impactful for the kinds of business situations I've been finding most people have. The methodology is represented in a model on the left-hand side of this page, and it's shown in circular fashion with a network of arms attaching these bubbles, because it is a little bit less than linear as you go through it. However, the methodology has been represented in what I call a strategy canvas. That's how we actually do the work of developing strategies for any client or any organization or any person that finds himself in need of an articulated strategy. It starts with, as I mentioned, clearly defining the strategic intent. If you go back to Lunchables circa 1989, they were in a situation where they had to figure out, how do we keep this thing alive? We've launched it. It's been an overwhelming success, but it's bleeding red ink all over the place, losing money. The intent is, we're going to turn this around and get it in the black, or we don't come back. And that was their actual intent. So you work through the canvas in that same methodology. You brainstorm the list, for example, of all the elements of the situation that are relevant to your intent. So in this case, what was year one Lunchables revenue? And in a team environment, a lot of things might come in to this list. But you take the most salient points pertinent to your strategic intent, and those become what you capture on the right-hand side of this particular page in the current situation. I usually like to try and maximize this to 10 entries written in headline form, because part of the challenge for people with strategy is to force them towards simplicity and clarity of understanding of the situation or their objectives or their strategy. It's too easy to be verbose and use a lot of words to describe a lot of things and to put a lot of stuff in a situation analysis, but usually there's only a small portion of it that's really relevant. And so walking through the canvas through each of these domains in this fashion, what's the brainstorm list? What are we going to put on the actual canvas? Is fundamentally the methodology. And you work your way through the entire canvas until it's completed. Now, usually this takes, and I'll speak to this a little bit more, it's usually the first pass is a one-day effort with probably little actually done on the tactics side. You have to get through the intent, the situation, the issues, the insights, the objectives, and the strategies, but usually don't have enough gas in the tank for a one-day engagement to get all these details done. And it also takes some time to dwell on this to make sure that it's, that you got everything wordsmithed the way you want it, that it's clear, it's understandable. But the notion is that you work your way through to get a completed canvas. This represents the strategy that you set out to to create. It's usually done in an engagement that looks like this. So when somebody asks for a strategy, there's some preliminary work that needs to be done up front. I'll meet with the client. We usually will have a conversation so that we understand strategic intent, because the intent sets the tone for the entire strategy, and it helps people understand kind of the guidelines and the framework that they're working in, so that it puts shape and sets direction and tone to the whole thing. So that's usually done in this preliminary work. What's your intent? What do you really need? And usually there's an understanding of who the strategy team is. This type of approach lends itself well to development, talent development. So sometimes you reach down in the organization and take people that can bring a new, fresh perspective to the strategy effort, but it also is a developmental opportunity for them. And then you kind of lay out the agenda and any pre-work you want the team to do. I met with a client earlier this week, and we're in this preliminary work stage. So we talked about the agenda for the one-day strategy session, and we laid out 4 or 5 page document with just brief questions for people to consider, to do some research on, so that they come into the one-day strategy session with more than just the cares and concerns on their mind. They've actually given this some thought coming into it. They brought in relevant information. They maybe have brought in relevant research, relevant background information. And then we hold a one-day strategy session where we pound our way through the strategy canvas. And out of that session comes I'm going to say an 80% complete strategy canvas. People are usually pretty charged up at the end of the day, tired out, but charged up because they've gotten specific and real about what they're trying to accomplish. I've forced them to be clear and concise and decisive, but there's always, depending on the nature of the engagement, there's always follow-ups and next steps that come out of that. So I'll have a one-day strategy session with every client. Some clients are very big and have very sticky issues, and the follow-ups and next steps could take quite a considerable amount of work, particularly if some of the follow-ups include doing more analytical types of work or research or that sort of thing. But that's all defined pretty clearly in this one-day strategy session. And it's done in the context of what you're trying to accomplish. Finalization is that third step where you really make sure that you button down the canvas, that it's articulated the way it's supposed to be, placing the bets where you want to place them, and that you have under every strategy, you have a list of up to a max of 5 tactics listed of what you're going to go do. Just by definition, a strategy is a concentrated body of work that's designed to achieve an objective. Tactics are the specific actions that you take to go enable that particular strategy. So think of it as a category of work is the strategy. My list of to-do list is the tactic list. But there's always, as I mentioned, some analytics to do as well. And there's usually a final presentation. The strategy canvas lends itself very well to actually being able to turn that into a board level presentation of what your strategy is and what you're going to accomplish. And that there's actually a pretty simple process for doing that. But that takes place in that finalization stage as well. The fourth stage is alignment and launch, depending on the nature of the engagement. There's got to be discussion about resourcing and alignment. In large organizations, like I'm doing some marketing strategy work for some organizations, alignment becomes the hardest part of the whole thing. They can get the strategy in place, but getting the organization aligned behind it becomes the big challenge. So that, that in itself becomes a strategy. And actually, I've developed alignment strategies with large clients for how they're going to get alignment to the work they want to do. And there's always a review and approval process embedded in there somewhere. The final step depends again on the client, but is all about execution and tracking. And there's a couple of options there. I try not to let anybody off the hook in any engagement I have with a client for the quarterly progress meetings, because I find that about half of all my clients have had or have a negative experience or disposition towards the concept of strategy, because they've, at some point in their past, they've gone and they've done all this work, and it's been great, and they've gotten all jazzed up about how they're going to, conquer the world, and they get back to their office and reality sets in, and lo and behold, nothing happens. Well, you go through that a couple times, and pretty soon you have a pretty sour taste about strategy, and I share that same sour taste. I don't think we've created any value with any strategy unless we've actually executed it and it's delivered the objectives that it's set out to deliver. So that requires either using the ThinkPoints tool or other tracking mechanisms to monitor progress. And on my part, at least quarterly check-ins or progress meetings with the teams to make sure that they're on course. As I mentioned, depending on the client, this can be something that's a fairly simple, quick work through. And I offer support in each of these steps, but it's fairly minimal, or it can be a fairly long, engaged process. Finalization for one client took 3 or 4 months, just because there was so much analytical work to do, and it was across several countries. So it wasn't just divisions. It was tracking to different regions of the globe and making sure that they kind of participated in various aspects of that as well. So, but that's kind of the structure of an engagement, all kind of focused around this canvas. It delivers, there's a lot of benefits of doing it this way. Besides the fact that it's intuitive, it's easy for people to understand, and that it's adaptable from clients that have very simple needs to, very sophisticated, difficult strategic issues. It's adaptable to that, and it's deployable in the organization. This approach brings about an opportunity for a lot of speed, focus, collaboration, because it's done in a team environment. It provides direction. You really frame things up quickly, clarity, insight. And as I mentioned, there's no strategy that doesn't have a tactic, and no tactic that doesn't have an owner and a date by which it has to be accomplished. So you build it in up front, and you have a very concise, easy to convey, easy to understand strategy for how you're going to do something beyond the status quo of what's happening today. If you're just going to do status quo, by the way, you don't need a strategy, because your organization will continue to do what it's already doing. But if you're trying to accomplish something big that hasn't been accomplished before, hit some sort of growth top target, or acquire something, or recapture some share in a market, those aren't easy things. You better have a strategy for it, and this canvas really helps lay that out quickly and clearly for an organization. As I mentioned, beginning this summer, actually this month, my clients weigh in and get to participate if they choose by using the ThinkPoints tool, which allows them to do everything to build their strategy in the canvas, but also adds the opportunity to, to drive deep alignment in the organization, because I can now start attaching other people in the organization to my canvas. It gives me visibility in terms of the status of what's going on in the organization relevant to my strategy. It provides kind of a single source of truth for the organization where collaboration can take place, because as you all know, you can get a strategy up and launched and get working on it, and then something in the situation changes, a competitive response, a policy change, a regulatory change, something can change, causing you a need to pivot. Well, if you've got this kind of collaborative environment, you can make that happen quickly. So you end up being pretty agile in your strategy development and execution. And it obviously works for a mobile workforce. It actually is kind of a way to keep that energy that you experience in a one-day strategy offsite. Keeps people engaged, because now they have that kind of common place to go and stay engaged in the strategy, as opposed to letting it, kind of drift off into the dust of some shelf somewhere. So that's that tool actually that I'm going to show actually addresses 4 out of 5 of the top strategy issues cited by CEOs. This is a McKinsey, global CEO study that they do often around the topic of strategy. But hopefully this tool is helping with company alignment. It's certainly helping with method for monitoring progress. It's helping with identification and focus on the strategic issues. Strategic issues, by my definition, which is one of the domains on the canvas, are those big things that will actually lower the probability of your success. So, for example, I have a manufacturing client that can put together a very well-articulated strategy, but unless they address their issue of a labor shortage, they can't grow. So that's a strategic issue, and the tool helps keep that front and center for them. I don't have anything built in for marketing and competitive intelligence, so that's the one miss on this chart. That does actually improve the quality of strategy development, development discussions quite significantly. So that's kind of the background on the methodology. I know I went through it fast. I didn't explain the definitions of all those domains. I'd be glad to do that in a follow-up if you want to. But what I'd really like to do is take a look at this web version, if that's okay. So, Perry, I think I can pull this off. I'll stop sharing this and I'll go to the website.
I am confident you can pull it off, Larry.
Okay, let's see. Share. Firefox. This is my web browser. Can you see that okay?
I can.
Okay, so we got the ThinkPoints. This is the login page for the tool, and I'll just go ahead and log in, and that will take me right to my particular dashboard for my particular business efforts. And this is a mock-up dashboard with a bunch of mock-up strategies in it that I use for situations like this. This dashboard is the
Larry?
front end. Yes?
What I would say to everyone, you should see a little button on the bottom of your screen for Q&A. And if you have questions as we're going along, you want to type them in, we'll both be able to see them and then we can answer them. Otherwise, when Larry's finished with the demo, we'll open up all the microphones and then we can all sort of chat together.
Great. So there's actually three primary things on this page to talk about. One is this left-hand side where it says Add Canvas. This is a list of all the strategy canvases that I have in this sample here. So Lunchables Black, for example, which is the 1989 Lunchables example that I've been using. The second thing is this button right up here, which is the settings button, and it has some functionality and important things underneath it. And the third thing is this large donut and list of follow-ups here. This is the status of canvases that are displayed on the left side. So if I want to know the status of just Lunchables Black, I can actually filter down to active strategies. I'll take all these away and apply that filter. And now that represents status of just one particular canvas. If I have several active strategies at any one point in time, I can do the same. I can get the status of either if I'm the boss and I want to see what everybody's doing on it, I can have the aggregate donut in front of me that tells me the status, or I can drill down in any one and see what that status is. Right down here on the bottom is basically a list of all the reminders. The red means it's overdue, and I can sort through and find out, who's working on it, what the status is, what's going on. So there's those three parts. There's build a canvas. There's the reminder status that tells you how things are actually going. This button up here has a few more things than on mine than others do because I own the thing. So I can switch from client to client and pull up a list and say I want to go to client XYZ and pull up all their strategy canvases. The other thing this allows you to do is administer all the users. So these are the made up users for my made up canvases on mine that you were looking at. And you can add users in your organization. There's canvas management, so you can do various things. If you want to export, open the canvas or export the canvas, you can do that. These are all the reminders. And then there's system configuration, which has to do with how do I want this thing to look and feel. The other things in here are, FAQs, domain descriptions, which I told you about, is essentially a PDF people can use to really understand what each area of the canvas is and how to fill it out if they need that kind of help. So there's those kinds of things in there. It also has a link to my public calendar. So if somebody really wants to schedule a quick call, they can hit that button and they can pick a time out when we're both available and set up a 15-minute call. I can also manage my profile, which, my name and my title and all that kind of stuff. So that's what that setting button is. I'm going to go back to the dashboard here. Under this canvas management section here, you see a list of all the canvases. These are active. That means they're launched and being executed against. These are in development. Here's something that is put on hold. There's also a category for completed canvases and archived canvases, which aren't showing here, but you can show by setting the filtering correctly. You'll see this little black icon. That is access to the message board. Each canvas you can message specifically about a canvas. This little red dot on here says that I have a message from some user on this particular canvas. So when I click on that, that message board opens up. And, here's my fake message. Hi, boss, I truly love Lunchables. So there's a way for somebody to go in and message specifically to Canvas owners and users and teams about what's going on with their strategies. This button right here there's a series of numbers that will appear, will show the activity for each canvas. So these have shown no activity since the last time I cleared it. This one has had one login since, a couple hours ago, and that was me. So that's kind of the dashboard. It's the way to kind of manage the overall. Specifically, a canvas looks like this. Here's the title. I can make it any title I want. And here are each of the domains. And this operates just like I showed you in the presentation. If I click on the current situation, a whiteboard side comes up, and that's where I can brainstorm and add things and have conversation about the situation. I can flag really important things, so I can bring them to the top if I want to. But if I want to add a new comment, like, Kraft alum like Lunchables. I said Lunchables. I can add that in there. I'll save that, and that becomes name, person that entered it, time and date stamped. If I decide I want that to be part of the situation analysis, I can actually promote that. There's a button there that says promote to the domain. And I'll promote that over there. Now you see it shows up over here. I'll save it to the domain, and then when I go back out, that's now at the bottom here. It shows Kraft alum like Lunchables. So I've added to my situation. I can add, subtract. Anyway, I capture the most relevant situation things. Each of these domains work the same way. Strategies is a little different. If I want to name my strategies, I go to the strategy whiteboard right down here at the bottom. It operates the same way. I have a whiteboard side. I promote to the strategy side. Now this, by the way, only allows for 5 strategies because it's my opinion that if you get more than 5 strategies, which often are too many anyway, you don't have strategy anymore. You start having lists of priorities or tasks or something else. But then I can also go in and for each strategy, start building tactics around them. And that's again limited to a certain number. It also limits how much text I can put in there, so it forces people to be concise. So if I went into this tactic and I started making it longer, you can see how it got yellow. That means I'm now exceeding the required length of that. And so none of that will show. So it gives you an indication. It kind of forces people to really be concise in their language. That makes sense. So I'm going to close this anyway because I didn't have anything to say. So that's how the canvas works. There's 3 tabs over here. One is the team, where I can add and set the participation level of any team member. So if I want this person to be a Canvas owner, I can change that. So that's the kind of, I can add more users. So there's a team management place. Tags are an important thing because as you get lots of canvases and lots of action going on in your organization, you might have a number of things that are important. So, for example, Lunchables automation became a really important topic. So I'm going to add automation as a tag. I can tag brands. So if I'm doing a marketing strategy for a product type and I have several brands, I might want to tag the brands in there so that when I look at that strategy or I'm sorting it through other strategies, I can pull all the relevant stuff up. The reminders is where you actually set and control follow-up. And I hope this isn't going too fast, but I want to get through this so I can get to your questions. We only have a few more minutes. Reminders are simple. If I want to add a reminder, you just click that button. I can add it to any of these parts of the canvas. I can have a canvas level reminder, which means something like I can say once a month I want to review the status of the entire strategy with my boss. I can have a follow-up associated with my objectives. So, track earnings each month or whatever it might be. I can do at the strategy level or the tactic level. So if I want to build a reminder in for objectives, I'll select that. I'll name the task monthly report to boss. I'll assign that to somebody. We're going to put it to administration, and I'll set a frequency. I want that monthly. It asks me, what day do you want that to start? We'll have it start today. And what day do you want it to end? Well, I'm going to do it for 12 months, so I'm going to put it out here to end. We'll end it in March of 2019. Add that reminder. And then it shows up in the reminder list. It's probably on another page because they got a lot of pages of reminders here. So that's how simple it is to add a reminder. So you can have essentially an infinite number of reminders parsed any way you want. It works an awful lot like if you have an iPhone, like the reminders thing on your iPhone. It gives you that mental, oh yeah, I need to do this and get it done. Reminders are green if they're on track. If they're 1 minute to 1 week overdue, they turn yellow. If they're more than a week overdue, they turn red. So that's essentially that red, yellow, green thing. Here again is the message board, the universal message board. We access that from the dashboard. Here are Canvas actions. You can change the status. I can put it back in development if I want. I can say I'm done with this strategy. I can reset this. I can add a child. What that means is this button over here says select child to view. This canvas has 2 children associated with it, a Lunchables automation. So I might want a specific strategy for Lunchables automation. I can develop that. And then this is linked back to its parent canvas. That's how you can deploy it. You can actually deploy as many layers as you want. And these buttons show up. If there's a layer to go down, you can go down. If there's a layer to go up, there's a button that shows up to go up. The other Canvas actions are, you can export it as an image. You can print. You can print the message board. So that's, in a sense, or in a quick overview, the tool. It's like I say, it's just launching. So this is kind of the beta version. Once people have been through the Canvas exercise and they understand how to develop a strategy, this tool becomes pretty intuitive and very helpful, particularly on keeping track of where things are and keeping it front and center. So I'm going to end it right there. There's a lot more detail we can go in on the methodology or the tool, but I think I'd rather turn that back to you, Perry, and see what people have to say and answer questions. Okay, I'm done. Are you there, Perry?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had myself muted. So I have changed a number of people to panelists. So you now should see a mute or unmute button somewhere on your screen. And so if you have questions, I haven't received any written questions yet. So if you just want to speak to questions, go for it. Any questions?
You guys are making it easy.
I think everyone's unmuted. Well, let's see. Unmute. Guess I have to unmute. Hold on a second. All right. There you go. So I unmuted everyone. So we're probably going to have a bunch of background noise. But any questions? Well, Larry, I think you did a great job.
Well, here's the thing. I am.
There is a question. What's the specific date that the software will be available for use?
It's available for my clients to use now if they want to use it. There's a subscription cost associated with it, an annual subscription cost per user, unless you have unless I have like a massive contract with you, and then in which case I tend to give away a few of these things just to, as part of the contract. So I can do that either way. It is still beta, so it's I'm still, I've got it rolled out to a very large client right now, and we're still making sure that things are working properly. They're giving me feedback, hey Larry, this button didn't work, or this doesn't make sense. Plus giving me feedback on, what functionality do they really want in the next version of it. So, it's fun and it's easy to use, but it is version 1, and so I don't want people to think that it's a silver bullet, because strategy isn't that. Strategy is a body of work that you have to go perform to accomplish your objectives. And this is a tool to help you track and stay on task. And I use it for marketing strategies, manufacturing strategies, brand strategies. There's a number of things that it's very easy to use for. So I would appreciate from people that have participated, not only if they have an interest in using it, but also, I'm trying to figure out what's the business model behind this. Do other consultants want to use it for their clients? I'm open to about anything, because I don't have any preconceived notions of anything at this point, other than this is a value add for my client.
Yeah, I think Larry, just to sort of piggyback on some of this, share with the group the earlier discussions. So naturally, one part of doing this type of webinar was professional development, and really having Larry spend time sharing his strategic methodology, right? The other side of it was, this opportunity to have members of the network to really give him feedback and be a part of a sort of a beta test group if you wanted to sort of participate in that process. Use this and provide Larry some feedback as the technology evolves, if you will. So.
Yep.
So to that end, whether you have more questions here, I think I've unmuted everyone that I can. I think some people have muted themselves, and I can't unmute them. If you have questions you have for Larry, I think, Larry, you want to tell everyone your email address?
Yes, it's McManis at ThinkWayStrategies.com. That's I don't know if everybody has it, but you're welcome to give it out to the. I can just actually, can I type it into the chat thing?
I think you can type it into the chat thing, but anyone can contact me at Kraft Foods alumni or CPG Professional Networks, and I would be happy to get you guys connected. And I don't have any other questions. And with respect for everyone's time, it's a few minutes before 1 o'clock, so you might get 2 or 3 minutes back from your hour. So
yeah, that's cool.
that's always a good thing. So thank you all very much. Remember, we have a couple of events coming up this summer in Chicago and in Miami, and a number of things planned for this fall. If you're interested in doing some type of webinar that showcases some sort of expertise that you have, please reach out. We'd love to sort of leverage the talent and expertise of our network. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day. And Larry, thank you very, very much for your time and sharing what you're doing.
Oh, thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it. So it's good for me.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.